my position in the rank 132 of the National Association of Letter Carriers position is these people have the perfect right and the personal privilege and the constitutional right to wear their hair as they see fit. And we plan on going to the extreme limits that we can go to see that they have this right. If management of the Dallas Post Office can make these men go out and get their hair cut, they in turn can make me stop getting my hair cut in the manner in which I wear it. Also, if they can do this, they would have the right to put me off the clock because I happen to have blue eyes, and that's our position. And we have this now in a formal grievance stage, and we plan on pushing it as far as we can go through the grievance procedures, and if necessary, we will take additional action to secure justice in this case.
Mr. Reed, what is the position of the Dallas Post Office concerning the suspension of 3 of your letter carriers, Fanning, Matheson, Walsh?
Well, the position of the Post Office is, like any other business, we have certain rules and regulations on conduct and personal appearance. These men, we have felt, are not complying with our rules on their hairstyling. Certainly we do not attempt to set the styles, but our requirements are that it must be clean and neatly trimmed.
Does the Post Office have some specific rules set out as to how employees must dress?
They have the prescribed uniform is set forth in our postal laws and regulation. These are carriers, and they have to wear what is considered uniform dress.
Okay, now what about in appearance as far as haircuts is concerned?
As I said, their appearance must be that their hair must be neatly trimmed.
The development of a Tarrant County Youth Services Bureau has shown tremendous progress since its inception back in April. 30 community agencies, including the Council of Churches and the North Central Texas Council of Governments, designed a program to help youngsters who are on the verge of trouble. Presently, there is no non-court agency providing services for young people with problems other than the juvenile courts, and most of them are filled with many cases that do not require judicial action. A committee for a Youth Services Bureau has been soliciting support of agencies throughout Tarrant County. The group recently failed in an attempt to get the support of Tarrant County Commissioners. Reverend Clifton Kirkpatrick says the committee will call on the Fort Worth City Council Monday for support. If the City Council endorses the program, the proposal will be submitted to the Texas Criminal Justice Council, who will provide 60% of the support. The other 40% will come from local agencies. Cochise Cash, Channel 8 News, on the move, Fort Worth.
Would the black citizens of the Dallas community, and especially in your area, feel that now they're being given a fair shake in the school system?
They end up getting?
Well, usually if they're out of that particular product, they don't have a substitute, you don't get anything. And for the last 3 or 4 months, the South Dallas Center here has been missing different things. As I was mentioning before, milk, and that's spoiled, and they didn't get any. And they had meal that had some bugs or something in it, and they did for 2 months. They were out of meal, and this is a real problem because these people miss these things for this period of time.
Do they only get to come once a month? Is that the only chance they get to get their food products?
That's correct. They come once a month.
How would the food stamp program better this?
Well, first of all, that you would have, you could go to the store, whereas you would have access to good food, a choice of food, and they would not be out of food. So therefore, you would get your merchandise, get good merchandise, and this is what people are after.
I do not feel that this would affect it one bit. You have taxes in most states where you do have liquor served by the drink. Tennessee has 15%. We're 3 times as large as Tennessee, and yet they've only got 2 counties who have taken the local optional basis, and the first reports that they have brought in a tremendous amount of money the first year. We do need different avenues of taxation. I am against broadening the sales tax. I am against the sales tax on food or prescriptions or drugs. And to do this, and without broadening this sales tax, I was against it the last session, I'm against it now, I will fight from the floor against such type legislation. But this is a luxury, and I feel that the people will pay it if they want it. A minimum that it would bring to the state is $60 million if this should pass and on a local option basis in some of the counties, and this is conjecture on its part.
As you said, if it should pass.
I think so. By the response that we received in getting the nomination the other night, I think this bespeaks that fact. And it's not that I'm endowed with any special creative wisdom or anything. I think it's just that me being a parent and a mother interested in my children as well as the boys and girls throughout the city.
The various groups supporting this project will be asking the City Council for their official endorsement of this project and for their participation by naming a representative to the board of the Youth Services Bureau at the appropriate time.
I consider the proposed increase in the hospital tax to be an investment and not an expenditure, an investment in the future of this county. We live in an age in which the poor will not accept neglect, and we're going to pay for it in one way or the other. And I think the finest, the most decent, the most humanitarian way to do it is to build a first-class hospital.
What's wrong with the food commodity program that goes on here, for instance, during the week when people come to collect their food commodities?
Well, usually they're out of very important items such as milk, meal, and other necessities, and the people can't get access to these things until the next month if they miss them for the time that they're here. And this is a real problem because there's no use of people coming here if they're not going to get the goods that they came for.
Action actually take place? In other words, when did the gentleman...
What actually brought this about was on June the 25th, Mr. M.D. Gaston, the superintendent of Walnut Hill Station, and Mr. Pete McCullough, the assistant superintendent, called Mr. Jerry Matheson, our station representative of this unit, who is one of the men involved in, and give him an ultimatum that on July the 1st he would have his hair cut 1 inch above the collar and his ears not over his ears, or he would not be allowed to work. And he did not have it cut, so on this date they put him off the clock, and he had reported to work every morning since that date at 6 a.m. and had not been allowed to get on the workroom floor because of the fact he had not had his hair cut. The same ultimatum was given to Whitney Fanning, and on this date of July the 1st.
Okay. Mr. York, is there a prescribed regulation stating how an individual must dress for the Post Office Department?
No, sir, there is not. There was a postal bulletin put out on August 1st, 1968, in which they had a little place in there about ready, willing, and able to work, and it did state that hair, mustache, and beard must be kept trimmed. And that is what these people are using, that because of the fact that they have not reported to work with their hair cut, they're claiming that they're not ready, willing, and able to work. The length of your hair has nothing to do about whether you're ready, willing, and able to work. We contend they have no authority whatsoever to force these people to cut their hair, and we'll do everything in our power to see that their rights are protected.
Okay. Does this hold true, this regulation supposedly that they are using for the basis of suspending this gentleman? Does it hold true to everyone? Or? No, sir, it does not. On July the 9th, last Thursday, July the 9th, we had a labor management meeting, and this was not an agenda item, but by mutual consent, after our meeting was about to break up, they agreed to discuss this. We asked the specific question if the people on the inside of the post offices had to get their hair cut. They made the statement, no, sir. This only applies to the people that have to meet the public on outside of the buildings. Mr. Fanning, how long have you been working for the post office?
I've worked there for 4 years.
And have you had the same hairstyle since then?
I've had my hair similar to this ever since then.
What about you, Mr. Matheson?
I've been with the post office for about 2 years, and my hair has been this length for about 9 months.
All right. What about your mustache and goatee?
The mustache and goatee are not an issue here. According to my supervisor, the mustache and goatee are not what's keeping me off the clock. According to him, they're neatly trimmed, and consequently, they would not keep me off the clock. My hair is the only matter in contention.
The simple thing to see if we could be afforded authority to enforce what the people out there are desirous of us to do.
When do you expect the results of this conference this morning to come out and action actually taken?
Well, now that's something you can't answer. We're only hopeful that we didn't ask for any procrastination on the subject. We want it done as quickly as possible.
With the passing of the vote, more or less 2-1, where does it go from here?
Well, we've passed the results on to Chief Don Bird, and he is in communication with our uniform committee. Our uniform committee has secured some samples, and they were very attractive. Our plainclothes men looked at them, and I'm sure that had something to do with the way that the vote came out. But the uniform committee, which is headed up by Director Fulgham, will be in session several times to discuss the pros, cons, the cost, and it's certainly not something that we will do tomorrow or the next day. It would, just supplying these things would take months and months, even if we had the approval of everybody along the line.
We'd like to get every citizen, not only in Fort Worth, but we'd like the 200 million to write these letters and to write to the President of Hanoi requesting, or demanding is what I would like to see, the release of these men who are no longer of any military value to the North Vietnamese. Fort Worth has been chosen as the model city for this, and it looks like we're off to a great start with all of you people here this morning. Hopefully, carrying this saying, if it goes well here, this is going to be carried nationwide, and we think it will be. It's going to be conducted for the next 3 weeks, and hopefully we're going to see a lot in the newspapers. We're going to hear a lot of talk about it, and Paul and Michelle and I are going to be carrying a lot of mail from that post office. And again, I said the purpose of it is to obtain the release of these men. This is the only way that I feel we're going to obtain this release.
Margaret, you bring in beautiful color to the 1970 Miss Texas pageant. How do you feel about it?
I think it's going to be a wonderful experience for me, being the first black, and for the rest of the blacks that will come in years to come.
Did you ever dream of something like this when you were a little bitty girl in pigtails?
I didn't think that I've ever missed a Miss America pageant or a Miss Universe pageant. And I used to sit back and think, you know, well, goodness, I sure would like to be a beauty queen. But I never thought that blacks would really be in there like we are now.
Other than such tantalizing statistics that you bring in here, 36, 24, 36, what other contributions can you make to the people of Texas?
Well, I'm going to do a Polynesian dance for my town, and it's a little unique, a lot different from what you generally see on pageants. And the interview is going to be scheduled for the contestants too, and I hope that I'll maintain my own in that.
And that's one of your hobbies, Hawaiian type dancing?
Yes, I do creative dancing. I've never had any special training done.
Well, of course, the free world hasn't sent someone yet, but I think someday our nation will have a woman in space.
Do you have that ambition?
If I had the college requirements and would still be within the age requirement by the time they do it, yes, I'd be delighted.
How about commercial airline pilots? Why aren't there any women commercial pilots?
Well, again, there are 2 or 3 women airline pilots in the free world and several in Russia. However, our country is not, the major airlines have not accepted women yet. I think that'll happen, though.
What does it take?
To be an airline pilot, or to get women accepted?
to get women accepted.
I think someone, all it would really take would be someone who would pursue it actively. I think they could do it. Under the Fair Employment Law, I think they'd have to let them.
Aviation is one of the few fields that women aren't jokingly referred to as lightheaded in. Why do you think that is? Why aviation in particular?
Well, I think when a gal earns the same rating, takes the same test, displays the same proficiency that a fellow does, she earns the respect right along with a pilot certificate.
Are you a feminist yourself?
No, I really couldn't be called a feminist, I don't think.
Well, what about competition with men? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've flown in the mixed races. They're a lot of fun. In fact, they're more fun sometimes than the women's races.
Why?
Because there's men.
What is your specific request or recommendation to the city? What do you want them to do? Of the SCLC?
Well, it's a pleasant coincidence, and we are certainly pleased to see that other citizens of the community have similar interests.
Who initiated this? How did this happen, both of you at the same afternoon on the same subject?
Well, the NAACP responds wherever possible to written, signed, notarized complaints from citizens. And of course, to this end, we are responding to a complaint registered in our office. It just so happened that it was simultaneous, I assume, with the interests of other people in the community.
Are these new conditions, or have they always been like this in Dallas?
We feel that these conditions have existed in areas of the community over a period of time.
Where did you go? Whom did you talk to as a representative of NAACP before coming here to the city?
Before coming to the city council?
Did you talk to landlords, property owners? And if so, what kind of reception have you had from them?
Members of our organization have talked to representatives and in some instances landlords by phone who refuse to carry the conversation beyond the initial information of stating the purpose. And this was the closing of the conversation, so we had no recourse. We could not pursue that course of action any longer when they refused to talk.
This was true of many landlords?
Several of those that we named, yes.
Did you consult with the Urban Rehabilitation Department before coming to council?
The Urban Rehabilitation Department has been consulted, and specifically by one of the complainants, who happened to be one of our members also.
Did they make an inspection?
They went to the area.
Did you not get satisfaction from them, though?
There was no satisfaction given the tenants.
Are you satisfied?
Rubbish, trash, holes in walls and ceilings, electrical hazards. We have balconies that are set so far apart. Landlords allow children to come into apartments, live on second floors, and the balconies are set so far apart that the kids can easily fall through.
Well, we would like to see the city implement some of the codes on the books where they have city ordinances regarding the health and welfare of citizens in the community, the building codes relating to the construction of multi-dwelling complexes. We would like to see it rigidly enforced.
I can't get the men out. Money won't get the men out. The federal government can't get the men out. Only the American people can bring these men back home. And I guess really it's fish or cut bait time in terms of whether or not my statement was true to the North Vietnamese. Then in America, 200 million people will become concerned about one person in need, much less 1,500.